This is the Night Wolf howling at you, and today we're going to take a look at the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Shadowweaver, the evil mistress of dark magic, part of the Filmation cartoon collection. And I think this is going to be an interesting one to look at because right now it appears that she's already missing one feature that every other version of Shadowweaver, not that there's been a lot, has come with. On the back of the box, we see, as seen on the Eldritch Mist, where Shadowweaver is casting some spell, and we can see Kyle, Adora cast a spell, and Prince Adam in the background. How come they don't have Lookie hiding in more of these images for the She-Ra figures is beyond me, though. So we are modernizing and celebrating the original 80s She-Ra Princess of Power animated series. She includes the Eldritch Book of Spells, and you can twist her into powerful battle positions. As part of this wave, we have Bo, the special friend who helps She-Ra, Whiplash, the evil tail thrashing warrior, and Shadowweaver, the evil mistress of dark magic. So let's go ahead and open this bitch up. So the parts we can remove from her head, arms, bottom half. Now there is a rather inappropriate hole right there, isn't there? And her hands. She does look like she is just using the standard female buck on there. The one that's usually covered by other parts on the other figures, giving her the slimmest shape of them all. So, as I was mentioning before, and this is even funnier, she does not come with a stand to have her hover above the ground, which is pretty much every other Shadowweaver that we've gotten between Classics, Masterverse, etc. has always had like a stand. And if you look down here, you should be able to see, hopefully you can see it, there is actually a hole for a stand in her crotch. Yeah, so there is a spot for you to stick a stand in her, but she doesn't come with one. That's pretty disappointing, to be honest with you. Also, we have her Eldritch Book of Spells, which I'm not sure how she's expected to hold it. We're gonna try. Part of the issue with this too is, you know, she's got the long sleeves here, but of course, because they're sculpted in plastic, they're going to look weird if you move her arms in any other kind of positions. We are almost at the part where we will be giving this up. There we go. She can't hold the book like a normal person, but she can hold it like that if you want to have her holding the book. She also comes with a Hitachi magic wand. If you don't know what that is, I would not recommend looking that up. Is this really, though, what her wand looked like in the cartoon? Again, like, it's been so long since I've watched it, I can't remember. Her face sculpt here is, I mean, it's Shadowweaver. We can be glad that they gave her nose a little bit of definition so that you can see that she has a nose. But that's pretty much all they really did. You know, a little bit of definition here on the head, and that's it. Her cape comes up. Oh, look at that. It's got individual shoulder blades molded into the cape. That's actually pretty nice when you get right down to it, because it helps it sit on the body better, which has been one of the problems with a lot of these pre-produced capes on figures, is they don't sit very well. So let's go ahead and take a look at our comic, The Final Fright. You know, pictures are there, but I don't even remember her being in there when I read it the last time. So this goes along with a lot of our other comics from the Origins line where they were doing the whole Horde War thing. And basically, the cartoon collection and the Origins one seemed like they were basically telling the same story, you know, instead of this being like strictly based on Filmation stuff. So we just see the Horde there getting ready to battle stuff. We see the Mantis, again, something that never showed up in the cartoon. He-Man goes and gets a He-Man from another timeline, which, you know, to help defeat him. Then we have everybody back on Etheria as they're going to go and try to rescue Skeletor from Hordak. We have Bo show up, mostly because he's in this wave. The funny thing is, they give us the dragon thing from the Fright Zone, which we got later on, but it actually looks just like a serpent here instead of the actual dragon thing that they created. Which honestly, when you get right down to it, I think I would have rather had the serpent version. Like, they could have given us the hand puppet thing again. I would have been fine with that instead of what looks like a mutated MOTU. And then we see Skeletor has been brainwashed to fight alongside Hordak again with the Horde in interesting Horde battle armor stuff, which, to be perfectly honest, I do think this Skeletor looks pretty cool, and I would not have minded seeing that made into a figure, except for the Havoc staff with Hordak's head on it. Try saying that 5 times fast. Battle ensues. Bo does some shooting arrow stuff. Oh, there we go. We have a couple images of Shadowweaver in here that they managed to work in during the battle. He-Man refers to Skeletor as Uncle, and I do not recall them actually in these comics, and maybe I have to go back and reread them again, but I don't recall them outing Adam as He-Man. So this is stupid. Also, I don't think in any of the comics, really, aside from some of the Skeletor stuff, when it came for the Origins and the cartoon collection, they haven't really outed Skeletor as Keldor either. I mean, yeah, we know in the 2000X cartoon it's obviously Keldor, but not so much in the other stuff, you know what I mean? So they basically go here, defeat Hordak, the evil Eldors, or whatever the hell it is that's in the Despondos dimension, which also doesn't make sense because Etheria is supposed to be in Despondos, but, you know, whatever. But they grab Hordak to punish him for failure. Hordak attempts to grab onto Skeletor, and it looks like the dimensional rift actually closes on Hordak's hand, cutting it off, which would have been much more badass if we'd seen He-Man or She-Ra actually do the cutting with their sword, which would have been kind of awesome. But no, and then Skeletor basically just gets to walk away, and the end. You know, they did that mini comic collection a number of years ago that had all the original vintage mini comics from He-Man, She-Ra, and the New Adventures, plus about half of the mini comics for the Classics line. I think they need to bring that back again or do a second volume, finishing off the mini comics from the Classics line and including all the new mini comics in order. That being said, let's take a look at our Shadowweaver. We already put the book in our hand and saw how badly that worked. We can put her magic wand in her other hand, well, in either hand, to be honest with you, where she can use it all she wants. I still think that magic wand looks stupid, though. Articulation-wise, her head is on a ball joint. We can spin it all around, and we can move it around this. The cape does interfere, of course, and if you take a real look here, the hooded head here and the cape are actually kind of designed to fit together in a way to help keep it lined up properly. So that's actually a nice feature, although again, it does hinder articulation. We can hinge the arm up and down. We can spin it around. The cape, of course, interferes a little bit, but not a whole lot because it will shift easily enough. Single joint at the elbow, which of course again makes it look kind of weird when you have her arm straight and her cape is still flying backwards instead of down. But we do get a little less than 90 degrees here, and we can spin it a bit. There is some plastic fatigue on here, or scrapes. Wrist spins in a 360. Again, the design, though, of her forearm does kind of hinder some of that movement. Oddly enough, she does come with the up and down articulation on her right hand and the in and out articulation on the left hand. So I guess she has She-Ra's hand. We can spin the waist at 360, and that finishes off our articulation because the bottom half has none whatsoever, where a lot of the previous toys have actually given us, I don't want to say ab crunch, but like hinges here to kind of like be able to move her a little bit on her legs. And here we have another bit right there where there's a scratch. I may have put that in with the clippers when I tried to clip it, but I don't think I did, to be honest with you. But overall, I mean, the Shadowweaver figure does look pretty good for Shadowweaver. It's just a shame that they decided to cheap out and not give us that little base, because I would rather have had that than the spell book that barely holds into our hand, which, by the way, I didn't really mention this when we first looked at it, but there is actually a bunch of crap written in there, so they at least gave us some extras with that, which is kind of nice. Yep, the wand won't work either. No, it is kind of a shame that we don't have like a little stand. Although, I wonder. So, here's Uncle Montauk's stand. So that will work for Shadowweaver. Of course, then you still have the problem of, you ain't got these guys on a stand. So I will call that a bit of a failure on Mattel's part. So I will straight out say it is really sad that they didn't give us a stand to go with her. And they didn't even have to design a new stand. The one that came with Orko/Montauk would have worked just fine for Shadowweaver here. So to me, there's no real excuse for that. Again, I would have been fine doing without one or both of these accessories to get the stand, because it's not like the book is actually designed for her to hold it in the first place. But aside from that, Shadowweaver was always going to be kind of a difficult figure just in the design motif because of her lower half. Because the only other way to do that would be to actually have used, say, cloth goods and legs. Because who knows, maybe Shadowweaver does have legs under there and she just floats all the time anyway, you know what I mean? But I think they did a pretty good job at creating this figure. I rather like it. Although, you know what? I would like to see them do a figure of her, quote, human form at some point too, since she showed up in one episode of the series. Even though she was like covered in her head again in that version, I kind of get the impression that Shadowweaver was probably one of the more beautiful females on Etheria at the time before she got transformed into Shadowweaver. Kind of a cool idea for a storyline, don't you think? But then again, in my headcanon, to go along with her transformation into Shadowweaver, I kind of feel like the villainess before she became this was merged with one of the Horde Wraiths, kind of the same way that Keldor was merged with Demo Man in order to become Skeletor. It just kind of makes sense if you're going with that kind of merging thing to keep people alive and give them additional power. Shadowweaver should still be out there and available for purchase in the wild. I haven't actually been paying that much attention, but I have seen both Whiplash and Bow available still in the stores, so I gotta assume that she's there with them. But again, with this one, I don't know who was double packed in the cases, and I kind of feel like Shadowweaver would have been the best choice for that, because she was probably a more wanted character than either Bow or Whiplash for the cartoon collection, since, she's another one of those ones who didn't really make an appearance in the original toy line. I'd still like to see them give us an Adora to go with the cartoon collection, but I'm starting to think that ain't gonna happen, as well as a background Tila in her metal bikini. But hey, why don't you guys let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this review, please feel free to Hitachi that like button. And if you want to hear more of my nonsense in the future, you can subscribe. Feel free to knock on that notification bell. I thank you for watching. Peace and love.